protest that Beijing openly regards as a threat to China's integrity. Robin Brandt, BBC News, Shanghai.
Professor Diana Fu from the Department of Political Science at the University of Toronto is an expert on Chinese politics, and she was in Hong Kong in January with a delegation from the National Committee on US-China Relations. Good to see you. Thanks very much for being with us. So how bad do you think this law will be for Hong Kong in the eyes of Hong Kong pro-democracy activists?
Yeah, I think that this security law is very, very bad news for Hong Kongers who care about political and civil liberties. It is Beijing is essentially declaring that it will define which activities are considered subversive, which activities are considered secessionist, and not the Hong Kong people and not the Hong Kong government. Now, Beijing does not deal very lightly with those that it charges with subversion. In mainland China, activists who are charged with subversion are often given long jail sentences. So this is very worrying for Hong Kong protesters who could potentially be charged with subversion of state power. Now, Beijing, though, has a different take.
Yeah, sorry, carry on, Karen. What's the Beijing side?
Well, I think for Beijing, this law is in direct response to months-long pro-democracy protests that erupted in Hong Kong last summer. And Beijing has called Hong Kong pro-independent sentiments a tumor. Now, what do you do with a tumor? You can't let it fester. You've got to take surgical action, and that's exactly what Beijing is doing.
So if this is surgical action, is there any way that this won't happen? Is there any option open to people of Hong Kong who want to reject this?
I think the options open to Hong Kong are very limited. You've already have activists in Hong Kong calling for a reboot of the protests, a reboot of the movement. But I think Beijing is very prepared to put those down at any cost because it is not pulling any punches this time. It is not even going through the Hong Kong government to try to pass this law. It is going directly through the National People's Congress.
And some of the protesters and some of the pro-democracy activists I've seen have been calling this essentially the end of Hong Kong as they know it. Is that overdramatic?
I think that they have reason to interpret it that way because if this law is passed and is enacted, it will fundamentally change the basic law of Hong Kong, and it will change the one country, two systems.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. But Diana Fu, thank you very much for your expertise and talking us through that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, the singer Mori Kante, who helped bring African music to world audiences, has died in Guinea.